I won't back down. I'm the boxer in the ring. I will go toe to toe, head to head. The week of March 3rd, and the following 7 days. Hello. Welcome. My name is G. So this week's chart, wham bam, there it is, in all its glory. Lots of power. We see Pluto. We also see next to Pluto a symbol for Isis. Isis has a seat at this table. And Venus. Is this a love triangle? Okay, so all fun aside, right? All play on words and making stuff up about beings that may or may not have ever existed or that may or may not matter. let's go over this chart while tying in Venus, money, and values and love and my desires and how I receive. And the connection that goes with Isis, feminine energy, just like Venus, feminine energy. Yet Isis is known as Mother Goddess energy. So in different circles, on different timelines, I believe Isis has lots of different names. Some could probably argue that, but from what I have kind of come across in the different sources of information I've kind of just taken from, I kind of come up with an interesting connection. And what kind of spawned it for me to dig deeper and deeper and deeper was actually a comment from a subscriber. So I'll kind of go over that real quickly here. But next to Isis, you see Pluto. We all talk about Pluto a lot, especially since it's now in Aquarius. And so backing this story up, backing this picture of the story, because that's what this is. These three are part of a bigger story that is going on in the background. Those in power. This is amazing power, right? Wherever we see Pluto, whatever sign it's in, there's empowerment. And when we think of power in terms of everyday life, we think of people with money. They got the money, they got the power, and that's how it works. The United States has given a really good example recently of people who are of wealth and power and, well, the right color of skin even, right? To skate and completely be held unaccountable for various things. So without dipping into any of that hot mess, is it a love triangle? Like I said, I'm just having fun with that. But there is something to it. Not that they're part of a trine in this chart, but when we pull it up closely and look at Pluto, at the beginning of this week, the chart starts off Pluto at 2 degrees. Let me see. Can you see what I see? Yeah, you can see what I see. You see? I'm on crack. Pluto 257. So Pluto's making a move this week. And it goes to 3 degrees on the 5th. March 5th, Pluto is now at 3 degrees. This matters because it changes the way Pluto expresses. It changes the way the Pluto in your chart shows up. Because the Pluto up in the sky talks to the Pluto in your chart because they're the same. They're one and the same. As above, so below. Ah, now I get it. Yeah, you see? So the Pluto up in the sky at the 3 degrees was all about, at the 2 degrees was all about values and money and finances. My desire. Remember, think Venus energy at 2 degrees. It's magnetic. It's about holding on to things tightly because it's what I desire. So I don't want to let go of this thing or that person. It's like, but this is mine type of energy, my money, my bank account, usually something material and tangible. Think of all the five senses when we think of Venus. So we think of food and creature comforts and natural resources. Venus rules the earth. Yeah. Earth, Taurus energy. Venus rules it. And Venus, the other Venus, who's the other Venus? The one in Libra, right? She rules Libra. Well, lo and behold, this is Pluto at 2 degrees in an air sign. Libra is an air sign for those of you who are following along with this. So that's Venus in Libra. So we think values and money. And then we go to, partnerships, marriage, business partnerships. It's professional. Can be lawyers, courtroom sagas. We're getting a divorce. I need a lawyer. I'm not walking away empty handed type of thing, right? So Pluto at 2 degrees, a battle for values, power, literal power, right? Meaning like energy, whether it's alternative forms of energy, whether it's the old school coal and oil, but nuclear, because it's technology. Coal would be more of the ancient stuff along with oil. Even though that took technology to make that oil work, it's got to be refined for us to be able to use it. But this is the ever, ever, ever evolving, the ever emerging, and ever innovating Aquarius energy. So even if we take something we've already got, our power grid, and then we re-up on it. Re-up, probably not a good word. Upgrade on it. I've heard re-up used in different ways, and it's definitely not associated with. Anyway, electricity, wind, hydrogen, lots of different options here. Nuclear, of course, is one of them. Some consider that kind of archaic, but it's not really. They've made unbelievable strides with nuclear energy, nuclear power. And the process of constantly testing and tweaking Aquarius energy, Pluto and Aquarius, okay? Values in money and investing, and a return on my investment, Taurus energy, 2 degrees. Now this is going to the 3-degree mark. So instead, at 3 degrees, it all becomes about your mind and your thoughts that you keep. The communication, how you're talking, how you're communicating, how you learn, and your curiosity. Oh, if we thought our brains didn't turn off before. Pluto at the Mercury degree on the 5th of March. You follow? So deep conversations, having conversations with people about things that really matter, not the bullshit kind of stuff. Because Pluto is definitely, it's not going to mess around. It wants to cut to the chase. It wants to, take the fluff and throw it out the window and get right to the meat and potatoes of the shit. That is Pluto. It's going to talk about shit that matters. Things that are deep, that are truthful, that are soulful, truthful to you, truthful to me, things where I'm talking about wounds and hurts from the past, things that I might have been embarrassed about, my vulnerabilities, my traumas, things where there might have been fear and shame, like it's Pluto energy. So we think of all the different sorts of wounds that people have experienced, lots of different ways, whether it's at the work, in the home, from the home, literally at a young age there's a whole freaking unfortunate dirty rainbow out there, and I don't mean, the love is love and call that a dirty rainbow. No, that's totally not the dirty rainbow. The dirty rainbow is the one it's hiding in the closet and it's all just shades of gray, and it's shit that it's about use and abuse, right? And lack of self-worth and shame. And that's not the rainbow we want. So the Mercury energy now with Pluto, deep research energy. So we think of deep research because it's information, Mercury, keeping track of information, and Pluto is the digger, the driller, the rotor-rooter, right? It's drilling, it's excavating. That's Pluto energy. It drills deep and it just keeps going down, 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 down. The mind constantly coming up, constantly digging for new things. The ultimate researcher, the super detective, breakthroughs in technology and learning and teaching, with business as well, for sure, because it's business. It's the Mercury degree. It's business. It's sales. It's snail mail. It's all forms of communication. And yes, folks, that is, of course, social media. So when we talk about Pluto, sometimes showing us the truth, showing us at what's at the bottom level of something or someone, that's Pluto's job. It will show you something that was buried and you see, holy shit, I had no idea. So this would be like a big aha, but I'm just going to say, don't expect like unbelievable revelations immediately in the things that you get like during this time. Expect that it's a process, because it's a slow process with Pluto, and it's going to retrograde back over these degrees. Okay. It's going to hit 3 degrees and it will eventually go backwards. Okay. I think it goes back to 1 or something, from like 3 to 1. Um, so keep that in mind, because the process of revelation will be likely the most revealing for Pluto when it is retrograding, covering those same degrees. You follow? The first time it goes over it, it might have raised a yellow flag. There might have been something that you heard, and it kind of perked up something in your mind, but you kind of maybe pushed it to the back and you didn't spend a whole lot of time with it. But then when the retrograde begins and that same kind of topic comes up, 349, 3 degrees 49 minutes is where Pluto will begin its retrograde. When that occurs, it's because it's the retrograde and it's digging and drilling even deeper. A retrograde, it's more intense. Okay. So Pluto will retrograde at 349. That doesn't start until May. Okay. Keep that in mind, May. So there's a little bit of time with this. Not a lot, but a little bit. Leo, Aquarius, Scorpio, Taurus. You follow? All the fixed signs. Okay. That's where the rotor-rooter in the zodiac will be drilling down and revealing some things. 3 degrees is, by the way, the mind, your thoughts that you keep, and how you communicate those thoughts. Okay. Likely will probably show us some fears as well, because the vulnerabilities are connected to that. Now, that's for the 5th, and we move on. We see here on the chart, the Sun and Saturn will be conjunct at the end of the week. Remind me to come and bring you back to that. We'll talk about that at when we get there. But the Sun is an authority figure, so we usually think of public figures, politicians, entertainers, yeah, anybody like public figures. These can be musicians, actors, actresses. These can be people on social media who have just, an unbelievable following. There can be even a little bit of flair for the mysterious, because it's Pisces, and the backdoor, backstage doings and going ons and backroom conversations. You know how we get kind of a sneak eye, a sneak eye. We kind of get like a little bit of a view of how a person of authority talks and operates and functions in front of the camera. But it's usually kind of like, well, okay, yeah, how do they really act when the cameras are off, type of thing, right? So Pisces is an actor, is a performer, is somebody who has the screen, who knows the public is watching, and who has a certain personality that they are exuding, some sort of a thing or a mood or a just some sort of a performance, something that they're trying to impress upon you and convey to you. Okay. Doesn't mean they have to be malicious with that intent. It just means they have the attention and the spotlight is on them. And the other part of this Pisces energy can be, because it's an authority figure, this person may be talking about things, because it can be an authority figure for where you live, whatever country you're in. But for us here in the States, there's a focus on people who are in other countries, because it's politicians and it's Jupiter energy. And anytime you see Pisces, you've got to think Jupiter too, right? Not just Neptune. So it has a lot to do with, water. It has a lot to do with, foreign governments and states, just, on the world global stage. and maybe their performances and the back and forth, the ping pong game between these the forces and the powers that be. Because remember, Pluto's going to 3 degrees by the 5th. So there's a lot of powerful communication, and it's about the global systems. You see, you got to kind of fold and weave all this together, right? And so because the sun's in Pisces, it should be kind of a big week, okay? You got Saturn right there at 20. It's about to go to 21. Saturn's not a fast mover, super slow, but it will like by the end of the week we're talking 21 degrees, and that's when the sun will meet. Will meet. Forgive me, my Mercury is it's being squared and angled a lot of different ways right now. You can totally see it and hear it. So this sun down here will meet up with Saturn, and at the end of the week, Saturn is rules, right? This is structure. This is possibly government stuff and corporations and the CEO because it's the sun conjunct Saturn. So, new rules. Sure, this is March. There should be a lot of stuff changing, a lot of things new. A new administration came in, right? Businesses have to fluctuate. They have to be aware of what's going on. And that then has an effect on the workforce, okay? But rules and structure and order, regulations, restrictions, and funny and oddly enough, it's with the sun. So these are both authority figures, both authority figures. So in Pisces, it can get kind of fuzzy because that's the Pisces energy. It gets a little fuzzy. Like what happened to that rule? There could be an expiration of some major rules that have to do with businesses, especially if there's anything involved with like tax cuts and corporations and all that hot mess. All right. So that's at the end of the week, literally like Sunday going into Monday. Okay. Let's talk about Mercury for a second. All right. I've got Mercury drawn in because Mercury enters Aries. Okay. Mercury's is the mind and how I communicate. I think that this is a big deal when we talk about Mercury energy because along with communication and Aries freedom, and we think Mercury communication, speaking, right? Then we think freedom of speech. This Mercury will retrograde in Aries, and so will Venus. Okay. I've made a reference to Venus on last week's video that she just literally started this retrograde right here at 10 degrees. Corporations, 10 degrees. Rules, corporations and rules, rulings, 10 degrees, right? So it's the money and it's the values, and it makes a whole lot of sense because Venus is right there. And so for us in our lives, Venus being feminine energy, what does this mean for you and your life, rules and goals and ambitions, and you figuring out about your body, your freedoms of your body, your free will in terms of choosing what is right for your body? Because Mercury's retrograde also begins right around this degree. It's really kind of an interesting setup. Venus's retrograde began at 10, Mercury's began at 9, and 9 would be Supreme Court and judgments. You follow? Aries is a pioneer. It starts something, right? It's like, okay, this is new, this is fresh, this is Aries. Well, this week Mercury gets its toes, it dips it. It's dipping its toes right there at 0 degrees in Aries waters. Okay. So once we get further into the week, we have to wait, I think, for Mercury to get to 9 degrees, right? 9 degrees is where Mercury will begin its retrograde. And that won't happen because Mercury slows down before the retrograde. Remember, goes real slow. All planets do before they begin, switching directions. So what happens is the slow pace, it means Mercury will not begin its retrograde until March 15th. because when a retrograde occurs, we usually have to make a decision and a choice when it lines up with degrees in our chart, whether that's a trine or a square, or maybe even on a house cusp line for sure. Normally, there's a choice and a decision. It could be a business choice. It could have something to do with learning and teaching. It might be something internal about my thoughts and the way that I talk to others in communications. Remember, Mercury isn't just about business, but yes, siblings and coworkers. And so we think about classmates and peers and cousins, people who were around quite a bit. Okay, Mercury energy. These people we're familiar with. And so we do the most communicating with them. And it also includes, of course, our online neighbors, people we've never met, but that we're friends with. So freedom is a big deal with Aries energy, and Aries can be quite feisty because that's how Aries is. It's Mars that is the ruler. All right. So let's go take a peek at Mars energy real quick. Here it is at 17 degrees. It's not retrograding anymore. Did you hear the angels sing? Yeah, the retrograde ended here at the 17 degrees. I think it was last week. Retrograde's over. It is still out of bounds. So it's still pretty intense. It is in emotions. So we are still trying to find ways to have a healthy outlet for Mars energy, but it's in water here. It's women energy. It's in a cardinal sign. When I say cardinal, remember, I said Aries earlier. Aries is also cardinal, which means Venus and Mercury are not, I repeat, are not squaring Mars because they don't go past 10 degrees. They get to 10 and then they go back to 0. Mars is on its way up in numbers and it's not coming back. It's done with its Cancer retrograde. Whew, right? It's been a doozy having Mars in Cancer because this is the public. A lot of, this is those California fires. Remember when Mars got to the 29 degrees in Cancer energy, the millionaire degree? Mars, yeah, people who have to carry weapons, the EMTs, the firemen, people who have uniforms, the emergency workers. Mars at 29 degrees in the public. Yeah, not good. Intense and out of bounds. Mars just did its thing. But here's Isis. There she is. She's right there in the black. You can barely see it. It's buried because I'm an astrology geek. I've got way too many glyphs on here for you to even see what the hell is what, but it's there. And I'm going to kind of go like this for you. And there is a Jupiter Pluto midpoint at 7 degrees in Aries, by the way. And here is Isis right there at 5 degrees in Aries. This is Leo. Children, fun, joy, creativity, romance, fun with my body, entertainment, how I take a risk. It can be sports, it can be sex, it can be however you like to take a risk with your body. And it's in Aries. Very fired up energy, very athletic energy. It's the lion, very athletic, king of the jungle at that degree, but it's in Aries. I'm the Marine. I'm the pioneer. I won't back down. I'm the boxer in the ring. I will go toe to toe, head to head. Like that's Aries. It came out of the womb with weapons. Isis is here. The mother, divine mother, goddess of the gods energy. Isis. I am kind of excited about this because at the 5 degrees here, now she's not an especially slow mover. I'm just going to say that to you. Okay. But we know Pluto is sitting at 3, right? We know that Mercury is at the beginning of this week at 0. Yes. So as this week moves on, we're talking Tuesday, the next day, and Wednesday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Mercury and Isis, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are conjunct. You see? So when you have communication, Mercury, connected with divine mother goddess energy, Isis, and when you know a little bit of the backstory with Isis, I'm going to get to that. I also want you to keep in mind Venus, who's retrograding in Aries energy, because we got to think what's going on with Aries energy in general. Okay. Isis represents a rebuilding of something after there's been disasters and things have been depleted. And it can be earth events because Isis is talked about as they refer to it like as the Nile River, where when the land is dry and barren, then the Nile River kind of purges and is so full it billows out onto the land and and it kind of fertilizes the land. It feeds the land in essence because it's the water that feeds the earth. And remember, we started talking about earth and water, right? So Isis has that ability to bring some water, but to make something and to create something with it. And the other thing that's powerful about Isis and the Venus connection, because Venus is values and money, right? We also go and refer back to Pluto now. Group energy, social services. These social services with Aquarius are there. They're safety nets in emergencies. Something went wrong, right? We have a system set up, okay? And it's not about handouts, not at all. It is about we are supplying humanity. We are supplying the individuals within this location, within society. There's a structure there. The waves that you see with the Aquarius energy, some have likened that to water. Some say that's electrical. Those are literally like from a battery or from electricity. Like you can see the electrical lines. It's like the power grid. Some say it's the neurons in the brains. If you ever see them, they have like these squiggly lines. So it is intellectual creativity, right? It's having these unbelievable downloads and these ideas of, oh my God, I never thought of that, right? So Pluto's there. Pluto is changing this all. It's changing. This is the feminine general. She's smart, she's creative, super, super powerful in Aquarius energy because she's creative and so is Aquarius. She's intellectually creative and so is Aquarius. She thinks outside of the box. That's why she has that shape for her head instead of a round head like everybody else. She's different for sure. Just like Aquarius, different for sure. All right. So it's connecting with Isis. It's connecting with Mercury. So, in terms of surprising information and maybe surprising communications, we see the sextile I have drawn in the chart. That blue line, that light blue, I just highlighted it for you. That's connecting with Isis. And we again have values part of this money and values because Aquarius energy is challenging global banking, global systems, supply chains. And we think of, like when we think of the global banks, we think of, okay, well, how does money actually get transferred globally, right? How can I send somebody money who lives all the way across the pond, like by the touch of a button? So there's things that are done behind the scenes, things that technology handles that are having major upgrades. Now, because ISIS is part of this, and Isis has been a big part of the story, and she somehow got lost and I didn't have her on my software. And because I have so many symbols, I'm really kicking myself for not talking about her more in the past. I just really am. And so with that said, I don't want you to feel like, okay, you've never talked about her before. Why is Isis suddenly important? She's been important the entire damn time. It was my mistake. With that said, Venus in Aries, Isis in Aries, Pluto sextiling Isis. Now, the story is, if you do a little bit of research, you can find this out for yourself. Different languages have different names for things, even though they're considered the same thing, right? So Isis, Isis was married, Egyptian goddess. Isis was married to Osiris. Osiris, Osiris. The person who can't spell is trying to spell. So Isis was married to Osiris. So if you start looking back a little bit deeper and further, some of the translations that Pluto is the Roman word, the Roman name, I'll say like that instead, the Roman name for Osiris. What would that mean? That would mean that Pluto's wife is Isis. You follow? So if they were a couple, which they absolutely were, and they continue to be a couple, right? Because this is soul energy for both of them. Very powerful, deep, soulful energy. It goes beyond this physical body, the material and the tangible. It's energy that just is. Like when you meet somebody and you're like, oh my God, I feel like I've known you my whole life. Even if it's not like a romantic encounter, it doesn't have to always be that way. There's just some deep resonations that you can feel. It's not even about, you can't explain it. It's just there, right? There are these energies where frequencies match up and bond and carry over, and that's what this is. And Venus is part of this picture, first of all, because they were husband and wife. Well, Venus is about love and marriage and money and desires and shared values. Okay. Well, really my values. But when we go back over to Isis and we see that she's in Aries retrograding and that Mercury is conjunct Isis here this whole week, and Venus is retrograding, and by the end of the week, Venus and Mercury and Isis will all have a connection because they will be conjunct. We will feel this. Yeah, it's interesting because it happens at the same time, because this is basically the story of the week. This happens at the same time that the sun at 20 degrees is conjunct Saturn at 21 degrees. And there is a rebuilding. There is something new starting because Isis is involved. So there's a new order, a new rule, new regulations. I'm sure businesses and corporations is part of this, but there might be some surprises. And to me, when I see Isis being a part of it and Pluto being a part of it, it's big and powerful. It will likely affect you and I. This is definitely something that can affect the powers who have all the money in a much bigger way. And Saturn usually imposes restrictions. So I'm making Saturn the color of Venus because Saturn can impose restrictions. But again, because it's in Pisces, there's something where we can bend the rules here with Pisces. Things get fuzzy in Pisces, or we do them just for an appearance. It's just for the show. It doesn't mean that's really going to be, something that's going to be enforced or it's really going to be a thing because it's in Pisces and there's so much energy in Pisces and the North Node is here. Because when you have Isis and Pluto together, you absolutely have a rebirth. It is absolutely, if you're still in the physical, material, and tangible, I always liken this to the Phoenix rising. It burnt up in ashes, but then it rises again and flies off. Because these two are husband and wife, and they are making connections in the month of March. And these connections are connecting with Venus, and they're connecting with new beginnings in Aries. All right, that's a wrap. We're all set. You got questions, comment below. Remember, I always appreciate your time. Okay, and I will see you in the next video. You take care.